Welcome to the CEO Launch Podcast.
We are a dynamic mother-daughter duo bringing you personality, insights, and practical advice from two different generations of entrepreneurship.
We aren't just mother and daughter. We are also best friends and business partners.
I've watched my mom help thousands of entrepreneurs start the businesses of their dreams, including me. And now it's your turn.
Welcome to episode 19 of the CEO Launch. Thank you guys for being here. Last week, we talked about our business pet peeves. And so if you missed that episode, go back and listen. It's hilarious. Today, we are going to talk about how you can stagnate your growth by chasing or sweating what we call the small stuff. So before we get into our talk time, Kenya has a cute little story that she wants to share. So go ahead, Kenya.
Okay, this story goes back to baby Ken. I was about 5 years old in kindergarten, as some people say.
We do know that the word is kindergarten, yes.
I just corrected it. I was in now I can't say it. Kindergarten. And in class, we were learning about living things. And so we did some experiments we put with lima beans. And so we did one experiment where we put the lima bean in water. And then we did another experiment where we put the lima bean in some soil. And when we put it in the soil, obviously, you guys know what happened. The one in the soil grew as a plant. The one in the water, you might not know what happens to lima beans when they soak in water. You know what happens to lima beans when they soak in water?
They expand.
Yeah, they get bigger. And I thought that was so cool. And so me being how would you describe me, mommy? Adventurous child?
Yeah, that's a good word.
What was you about to say?
You came up with the word because I was scratching my head trying to think. I don't think that no matter how much we tell stories on this podcast, nobody will ever get a full understanding of what little Kenya was like. I can describe you as best I can, but I don't think that except for me and your dad, because we were there, won't know what little Kenya was like. So go ahead and tell your lima bean story. I may interject one or two more times.
We're going to call me adventurous. I was very tactile. I was a kinesthetic learner. You know, I needed to have my hands in things to really get a grasp of things. So me being a kid that I went home and I was ready to do the experiment at home because learning is all the time. I don't understand, why we have to separate home and school because, I'm just kidding. We should. But what you about to say?
Nothing. Go ahead.
My grandmother, my dad's mom, ate lima beans, on purpose. And I didn't really understand that. But because she did that, she left a bunch of lima beans at the house. So me, being myself, saw an opportunity. Now, it wasn't just one lima bean that I could grow for the class. I now had a whole bag of lima beans that I knew how to grow. And we had this patch of land, we lived on a farm. But it was this kind of garden-ish thing in the front of our house.
It should have been hedges, but there weren't any hedges.
It should have. It wasn't. And I saw an opportunity. Once again, being the entrepreneur that I was meant to be, I saw something and I wanted to make it and cultivate it into something bigger, okay? So what did little Kenya do? She decided to take 20 of the lima beans and plant all of them where the hedges were supposed to be. And, I dug it up and I planted them and I watered them. And being a little kid, I would go back and kind of check on them, be like, okay, is it growing? Because in class...
In 5 minutes.
Yep. Is it growing yet? Because in class, we had it in a plastic cup so we could kind of see everything that was happening. I couldn't do that in the little fake hedge garden. So I had to just kind of check up on it. And after a while, my lima beans was growing. They were getting big. They were growing and they were growing. And they were getting big for a 5-year-old. And this part of the story is really tough for me even now. My lima bean garden was growing and my parents, I don't know if they didn't believe in what I was doing or what, but when the guy came to cut the grass, he cut my lima beans too. And so all 20 of my plants were gone.
How you gonna blame it on your parents? We did not direct him. We didn't say, hey, go cut down those things. He didn't know that Kenya had planted them. To him, in full disclosure, he was more of a yard man than a landscaper. So he didn't know that they were intentionally there. So he cut down her lima beans because he thought they were weeds.
He thought they were weeds. But you know what? That didn't stop me. I kept growing lima beans. Every time you go to Walmart and you get a package of lima beans, those aren't my lima beans because I eventually stopped. But you thought I was going to say something like I was a part of the lima bean industry. But I think the purpose of that story is to kind of just talk about how a lot of times we plant seeds and we might even see somebody else do it. And we plant these seeds and the 5-year-old in all of us is kind of like, let me go dig it back up and see what's going on with these lima beans. Let me see what's happening with it. And I could give a whole nother scenario about going back to my first point of the first episode. You got to tell the right people what you're doing, because maybe I should have told the line guy that I was growing lima beans, but that's not what this episode is about. But just focusing on the fact that that instant gratification, that 5-year-old in us that pops out is so hard to hush sometimes. It's hard to quiet that side of us that wants to put 20 things in the garden and constantly wants to dig it up to see how well it's doing versus planting these seeds and then nurturing them and growing them over time.
Yeah, so when we talk about instant gratification, I'm thinking about the business owners who think that they're going to run a Facebook ad today and tomorrow they're going to have $10,000 in their bank account. You know, maybe sometimes that happens that way, but that's not the norm. That is not the way that it happens, you know, and I believe that in most cases, the businesses that do explode, the ones that do go viral, they're in two categories. They're the businesses that have been constantly planting seeds and continuously watering those seeds. And then one day, the right person sees them, hears them, shares them, or whatever, and boom, it looks like instant gratification. But really what people don't realize is all of the time and the effort that has been put into it. I have a client like that. They had a business where they have been just putting into the business and pouring into the business and growing as business owners. And then one day it's like almost like they blinked their eyes and they looked up and literally had a 6-figure month. And so it looked like, again, instant gratification, but it wasn't, because they had been they planted those seeds a long time ago and they've been watering them and fertilizing them. And so fast money is rarely how you build an empire. Empires are typically built with foundation, right? So when you think about, if you think about building a house, period, you have to have the right foundation when you build that house. If you don't have the foundation as you build, that house will not be able to stand. And it's the same thing when it comes to building our businesses and building our lives. Really, it's talking about building relationships with other people. You have to make sure that you have those foundational things in there. So that's my whole thing about the instant gratification.
When you were saying that, it made me think about the fact that there was a point in time where AOL and Google existed at the same time. Like, Google was alive and thriving when AOL was that girl. You know, that was the place, that was the search engine, that was the place where people went to find information. Now, you know, if you was born in 2000, you probably don't even know what AOL is. But you know Google, and you know Google Suite, you know Google Gmail, you know Google Voice, Translate, all of those things. And it's not necessarily about like where you start, you know, it's how long you can stay in the game and how well you do when you stay in the game. Popularity doesn't translate to money and it doesn't translate to longevity. So it's like you definitely have to think about when things happen fast. How many celebrities do we know that's the it girl and all of a sudden 10 years later, they don't make it?
Or you don't know who they are. We heard of them, one-hit wonders. The thing that I was going to say is with the instant gratification, a lot of times when we're not true to ourselves, and we talked about that in a previous episode, when we aren't true to ourselves and we try to do what we see other people doing, we think that, oh, she did this and she got that result. And we think that if we copy or emulate those actions that we will get the same result. The thing is, you don't know what that person was using for fertilizer and to water it. So that was the other thing that I wanted to say about instant gratification.
Yeah. And honestly, off that point, I want to say I'm not anti-coach, but I think a lot of times people will attach coach to their names. And it's because they want you to buy into that copy and paste method. You know, like, I did this, so you can do it too. And that's not what coaching really is. A coach is somebody that can see the potential that you have, understand your purpose, and get you to where you need to go. A coach isn't somebody that's going to give you a step-by-step, this is how you do it. That's not what coaching is. You know, that's like playing a basketball game and they tell you every single move that you need to make throughout the basketball game. When you play the game, they give you an idea. This is what we need to do. This is the way that you need to figure it out. And you get on the court and you move the way that you move.
Look at you doing a basketball analogy, miss.
You know, just a little analogy. That one season that I played paid off. You know, I was paying attention just a little bit.
Just a little bit. That's another show.
I don't know what that show would be about. But regardless, the second thing is just thinking about how great things aren't built in a day. You know, when we were talking about it's very hard for a lot of people to be the it girl for a long period of time, right? My favorite, as y'all know, is Beyonce. And Beyonce has had an opportunity to have a longevitous career where she has been that girl for close to 20 years, if it's not already 20 years, 20 plus years, because of the things that we were talking about with the foundation. But a lot of people don't know up until recently, and even if you do know, you probably a stan. But there were times where Beyonce lost. She's been doing this since she was like 10. And they were on Star Search, and they were a finalist on Star Search and didn't win. I forgot who they lost against, but they did not win Star Search when they were on it. And she could have very well been like, well, I didn't win this national competition, so I'm just going to go about my business and do something else. I'm going to become like a marketer and be in college at TSU or whatever. She could have easily did that, but she didn't. And because she didn't, we have the Beyonce that we know today, and she continuously got better. One thing that most people at the very least can appreciate about Beyonce is her work ethic. You can't see a body of Beyonce's work and not hear the improvement from piece to piece to piece, and not hear the intentionality from piece to piece to piece, even if you're looking at performances and things like that. And I think that's something that people need to understand. Like, if you don't stop to learn, then the lesson is lost. Like, all of the pain that you endure over that time is lost and it's pointless. So you need to make sure that you're picking up on these lessons.
Yep. So I think it's a good time to go to our takeaways. So the first takeaway that I wanted to leave us with is that loss is a part of life and is definitely a part of business. So losing isn't the bad thing. So we're not going to sweat the small stuff, right? We're not going to worry about losing. But like Kenya just said, in that loss, don't forget to learn the lesson. And so one of the things that I do, I'm very intentional about everything. And I've lost a lot. I've messed up a lot and I've made a lot of bad choices. In all those things, I am constantly self-reflecting on what is the lesson? What do I need to learn from this? What do I need to do differently the next time? And so let's not get caught up in the loss that we forget the lesson.
And sometimes the loss isn't always about you. You know, like the loss is so that you can make an episode for the CEO launch so that other people don't lose in the same way. But seriously, it's not always about you. And we have to get out of the mindset of being so self-absorbed and so self-centered that we think the world is going to end because something didn't go the way that we wanted it to go. We said it on episode 17. Perfection isn't real. It's not real. And you have to be constantly moving towards progress and getting better. That's what's going to keep that momentum. That's the difference between AOL and Google. AOL wanted to stay a search engine, and I'm sure they crashed for a lot of other reasons. But Google was like, nope, I'm going to make some devices. I'm going to buy YouTube. I'm going to get into all of these different pockets. And Google isn't the best at everything. You know, Google does a couple of things that we may not know about. Google has a learning management system. It's not like Canvas. It's not like Blackboard, but they have one. You know, so it's like they tried to do Google Meets. It's definitely not Zoom, but they have it, you know, so it's just like sometimes you just have to try different things and figure it out along the way. And I think the second takeaway is really important, and you can't expect other people to invest in your business if you don't. Going back to the Beyonce example, she had to put in the time, she had to put in the work. And when people saw how hard she worked, then they were willing to back her and get behind what was happening there. You could talk to anybody that has written a song for Beyonce, worked alongside Beyonce. They will say she works hard. She puts in the work. And you got to be able to have that same type of reputation about your business so that people know that you're invested in this. You putting in the work. Like, you are really trying to see this go to the next level. Because if I don't see you trying and I don't see you doing what you need to do, I'm not giving you my coin. I'm not supporting you. I'm not supporting nobody that's half in, half out. I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, because you might not be here tomorrow to deliver on the product that you say you have. So that's the other thing. So last takeaway is you have to play the short and the long game at the same time. So what do I mean by that? The short and the long game. The short game is the low-hanging fruit. That's the stuff that you do right now to bring in money right now. But you also have to be simultaneously doing some things in the background that's going to bring in money down the road. So I think about when I decided that I wanted to get into forensic accounting. That was 7 years ago. A lot of people don't know that. It was 7 years ago when I started. I was still, and I still do. I'm still doing taxes, still doing QuickBooks trainings, doing all these other things. But in the background, I was getting my CFE. And I went back to school and got another master's and doing all of these different things because those are the things that were a part of the long game. And those things were things that weren't going to pay off right then, but they would pay off later. And so in your business, you have to think about what are the things that are in my short game or life. We say business, but sometimes a lot of this applies to life too. What are the things that apply in the short game? Things that I can do right now that could bring in money, and then what are the things that fall into the long game?
Yeah, I 100% agree. You got to have that plan. You got to have that vision, as some might say, and you got to make it happen.
Yep. So thanks, guys, for being here with us. We always appreciate you sticking around, telling people about the show, and join us next week. We're going to talk about building your dream team. So if you haven't already joined our online community, the Efficient CEO Movement on Facebook, join us where we will continue the conversation and provide you with support, tips, and advice on your entrepreneurial journey.
And follow us on social media at the CEO Launch.
See you next week.
And don't forget to take off.
This is a Clear Word production.